Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Women of Marvel. This is celebrating 7 decades. This book came out in 2010 and is about 340 pages, obviously from Marvel Comics, and predominantly all in colour all the way through. However, the cover is slightly misleading in terms of, obviously it is all about the women. However, things like Wasp, she doesn't have a story, so it's very unusual. You've also got, obviously Gwen Stacy there, not particularly a main character, and also you've got Miss America on the back, who doesn't have appearance, and of course Medusa, who doesn't appear either. So there's a few characters, and also there's characters in here who do, like Silver Sable, who are in this, obviously not on the cover. You'd think they would have drawn a cover that actually had the characters that were in it. However, a mere quibble on that. You got straight away, you've got the some of the other books. Women, obviously, there's a Women of Marvel to confuse things there, 7 decades handbook, as well as Women of Marvel, and also Volume 2, as well as an omnibus hardcover. Very unfortunately now out of print by a long stretch and quite expensive. However, what you got is this. Lots of great characters. One, I must admit, I did not know, actually a couple of them I did not know of at all. And you've got a lovely index there, which is always quite good, 1940s, 1950s. Some really odd choices what they've done with this, 1960s, 1970s, etc. And then introduction there, obviously all the various people involved in the project. And into the 1940s, it's got a little bit of a description there for each of them. So Mystic Comics, Marvel Mystery Comics, as well as Venus. Now, that's probably Marvel Mystery Comics, might have been one that had Miss America in. However, she's not in this because it's only one little part of it, which is really odd. However, of course, you've got the cover there, Mystic Comics, and you've got Black Widow. Black Widow is a character that's an unusual character. And actually, I don't know how many appearances she had. I think she didn't have many, but she was a good character and one that you thought would have been reintroduced into the Marvel Universe in a slightly different way. Obviously now we've got Black Widow character. And Black, to confuse things, Black Widow is also a little bit later. But you've obviously got the earlier Black Widow. This one, of course, is involved with Satan and has various mystic powers. Then you've got Namora, character that doesn't obviously turn up that often in the Marvel Universe. Of course, she is in Agents of Atlas. I love those. And I love these old Marvel Mystery Comics, or Marvel Comics as I would call them. I still don't believe the Mystery Comics was anything other than just a bar across it. Marvel Comics, my opinion on that one. Issue 82. And, oh, it even says, from Agents of Atlas trade paperback. So it's obviously been reprinted already earlier. I love this story. I love this sort of style of artwork. It's very unusual. They just don't look the same as, Submariner. Look at Submariner there. Just looking very odd. That's nothing like the Submariner that we see now, even from the old Fantastic Four issue 4. So you've got those brilliant story where they're obviously fighting. They never fought any real super villains. It was always sort of gang of thugs or something, or smugglers, or some sort of pirates. Obviously sea involvement. And then you've got Venus. And this, of course, was from the Agents of Atlas trade paperback as well. So Venus. Now, there is also a Marvel Masterworks Volume 1. Sadly, never a Volume 2. I would love to see an omnibus edition of Venus, because some of the better stories are in the next set of stories. But, however, these are great. They're lovely. And I love the artwork. I love the way it says that it doesn't, I think it says at the front, doesn't know who the artist was. I thought it was Ken Bald. However, maybe I'm completely wrong on that one. But wow, I just love that style of artwork. Very unusual. It's not maybe everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's just great. Beauty Mag, obviously it's a beauty magazine. It's more like Millie the Model, that sort of style. It never really knew where it was going. It was one time it was this, and then it was that, then it was mystery, then it was horror, outright horror, vampires, zombies, all the lot. Then you've also got mentions of things like Millie the Model, obviously going into the 50s. And you've got Lorna the Jungle Queen and Lovers. Very odd choice. I would have thought Millie the Model would have been a more obvious choice. Or Patsy Walker. Even Cathy the Teenage Tornado. Great name. So you've got Jungle Queen. And the weird thing is, why did they do 3 stories of each of the 50s ones? Why not space it out with different characters? Would have been more sensible, personally. Lorna the Jungle Queen. just have one story of Lorna, and then, because you really got the basic story of what Lorna is, but she's a jungle queen. There's lots of characters in the jungle, and you know what's going to happen. Those sort of stuff. You've got gorillas, or Agoo the giant in the next one. Brilliant artwork. I love these jungle stories. They're absolutely brilliant. Of course, there's some Marvel Masterworks collections available. I think it's 3 volumes. Really worth checking out. And then all the way through there, just superb artwork. One madman at the end of that story. Part-time girlfriend now into the romance one. And again, I'm surprised they put so many romance stories. Nothing wrong with that, but they are very obviously samey. Generally, character, oh, I love that person. Then by the end, of course, she falls in love with someone else, or whatever. There's all those sort of variations. But they're still brilliant. Lovely artwork. This one's quite nice. First date story. So, great story there. And you've also got those lovely text stories that they always put in as well. So that's out of the 50s. But again, missed opportunity, I think, for maybe like Millie, Patsy would have been more sensible. Maybe some of the other ones. Tessie the Typist, or sort of Sun Girl, something like that. Just seems odd not to include them. However, we're on to the 60s. And this is another odd thing. Why didn't they include my favourite, the Wasp? Where's the Wasp? Where's Medusa? Where's those characters? Completely forgotten about. However, you got Power of Iron Man. Black Widow strikes again. Great story, of course, with Hawkeye, and she gets this diva girl who can move mountains. Great story, though why Tony Stark always seems to forget about it, he always does. And then you got Hawkeye, and the new Black Widow strikes another story. Similar sort of, it just seems odd. But I love the stories. There's nothing wrong with the stories. They're all classic Iron Man stories. Sando and Omar. Classic. 2 eerie enemies from Captain America's dramatic past. Were they? I don't know. Maybe in the Golden Age, maybe these characters did exist. However, you got that story, brilliant tale, Hawkeye again, when he, of course, was a, quote, villain. And then you got Spider-Man. You got Rhino Rampage. That's why slightly confusing with the fact they go with Gwen on the cover, Gwen Stacy. Why? Because this, of course, is a Mary Jane story. And obviously Rhino running around. And, of course, Jonah Jameson doing his usual sort of, I love that bit, get his keys to the washroom. Classic. Oh, Gwen does appear briefly. However, now on to the next set of stories. And we've got another break. 1970s. There were lots of brilliant characters. And I'm not saying this is not a brilliant story. Odd choice. X-Men story, obviously, with the Phoenix, but it's just really unusual one. Because, of course, you've got the Cat, as it mentions here, Night Nurse, Shana the She-Devil, Million Model, sort of finished off at that point, Spider-Woman, and so on and so on. Some great characters. Maybe they appear in Volume 2. I don't know. I haven't got Volume 2. So you've got the story here, the X-Men story, classic story. Brilliant artwork with Phoenix and Cyclops and Colossus, the usual selection of characters. And then on to the next one where you got Miss Marvel. And I love this one. This is where she gets... now, I don't know how long she kept this costume for. It was... don't think it was very long. There was a bit, obviously, a period when she was, but yeah. It was an unusual break that sort of when it suddenly changed. The series sort of had a slightly different feel. Dave Cockrum, Chris Claremont, but still great little stories. Then into the 1980s, and of course another little bit of introduction to the 80s. You've got Fantastic Four and you've got Daredevil. Classic Elektra story. Brilliant. Now that is a good choice. Elektra was a brilliant run of stories, Daredevil. Frank Miller, that was some of my favourite comics. I love those. Really, really brilliant. I've got the artisan edition of that, and it's just superb. Now, the Fantastic Four one. Now, this one is slightly odd because I suppose it's Sue Storm, but it's also, of course, She-Hulk as well. Combine the two, put 2 in. Great little story. Never read it before, actually. This is one story so it's quite nice. Fantastic Four 284, so it was from that issue. And this is from Fantastic Four Visionaries, John Byrne, Volume 6. So you've got a real good story there with Psycho Man. And, of course, Sue Storm. Now, the Invisible Woman, as she says. However, on to the next one. This is a Jim Lee one. An Uncanny X-Men Broken Chains story that I had not read. Actually quite reasonable. quite a reasonable story, lots of very violent action. However, not really certain. I mean, obviously it's a number of female characters are in it, but probably not the best choice, I would have thought. However, seems to be more really quite Wolverine characters than really anyone else, but that's still... But this was a biggest surprise. I have never read any of her stories, Silver Sable, and I thoroughly enjoyed him actually. And I've actually gone since looking on the Marvel Unlimited and checking those out. So weirdly, there's no collection. No collection of Silver Sable. I am really shocked. No Silver Sable complete or epic or anything. You know, you would have thought a 400, 500 page complete collection of this character. Very strange. Because, of course, there were lots of the Spider-Man stories. This was obviously her first issue, issue 1. But there was earlier Spider-Man stories, which I had to check up, I must admit. I did not know. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I loved the appearance of also, in one of them, actually, it was Sandman. But Sandman's not in this. You got good old, my favourite characters. Well, maybe not my favourite character. It's always AIM. I love AIM. It's not AIM. It's the other lot. Hydra. Good old Hydra. But yes, I was going to say, Sandman is in this. It's quite nice to see Sandman as a hero, sort of. This was enjoyable. Arana, the heart of the spider. And again, another little introduction. And you got 3 stories in this period. You got Arana, you got X-23, and the all-new She-Hulk issue 1, which really is an unusual one because it's not really hardly about She-Hulk, which is odd. You got Rana's story, that's excellent. I love the artwork, it was absolutely brilliant. Very dark though. Not mega fan of dark stories. I prefer the lighter, earlier work. When it got into the later period, 20 years ago, it became quite, the artwork really heavily influenced with heavy inking for me. Very dark colours. I prefer lighter. However, obviously not designed for me. But that's the way it is. And then on to the next story. It was a thoroughly enjoyable story though. And this one's very good as well. You got X-23, thoroughly enjoyable character with obviously Wolverine involved as well. Some lovely artwork there. And then on to the next story, which is, and yes, again, that's slightly surprising, Scar. I must admit, never read any of the stories. So completely unfamiliar. However, it was a decent story, nothing wrong with it, but not really a She-Hulk story, which is odd. So I think She-Hulk just, but that's the way it is. So at the back, you've got no bonus material, at all. That's very unusual. You thought there would have been an opportunity to, especially like the Marvel Firsts. This is what I would have thought they should have gone for. Marvel First, the women. So you would have had like a 500-page book, and then you would have all the covers. So they could have put covers all the way through the book of all the different issues that were obviously important, that were related to obviously women over the years. And this was sort of getting there, but it wasn't really as far. But, and like I say, without any bonus material, very odd. The only weird thing is also another thing, I never understand an end page where you can see the faded there. Why? However, did I like this book? Yes, thoroughly enjoyable. It was really quite nice because it also meant that I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and explore some of these other characters, which I have not, like Silver Sable. So I like books because of that. So I always like, if they can bring out new things, you think, wow, great. Well, so I have to say, this is a totally recommended little book, and you should be able to get a copy of it. It's out of print, but it doesn't seem to be, at the moment, excessively expensive. Sometimes these out-of-print books, of course, become very expensive, but this one is still reasonably priced, which is good. Totally recommended, as mentioned.